The local players are back. Corey.
We haven't been canceled yet.
No, we're doing good. Although I kind of was going to gauge your opinion on this. Am I going to cover a single football win on my college beat this season?
To be determined and left up for plenty of discussion that I believe you and I will both get into a little later on in this episode. So for those that are tuning in at the beginning of this, please stick around because we've got a lot to delve into on the Warhawk beat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The probably the best way to do this is what we'll do is we'll hit up Louisiana Tech. We'll hit up some preps right here at the front, and then the rest of the program will be devoted to the ULM Warhawks and what happened this weekend at Malone Stadium against a group of UTEP minors who had not beaten an FBS team since the 2018 season, or went on the road for that matter since then. So we will get to all that when it is time. But in the meantime, Corey, you had a game this weekend over at Joe IA Stadium, and it sounds like from the looks of things, from your offering at thenewstar.com and from the box score, that all unfolded as it should have.
Yeah, I think, anytime, especially a group of five school, right, hosts an FCS football program, it's kind of about holding serve, right? And Louisiana Tech definitely did that last night. To me, okay, so two big things stuck out to me, in Louisiana Tech's 66-38 win over Houston Baptist is, okay, let's get this out of the way and over with from the very top here. Luke Anthony is going to be the full-time starting quarterback for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs for the rest of this year.
And you mean it's not day to day, we're not competing?
We should be well past that at this point, okay? And the two key reasons why I say this is, obviously on the road against a rival in a rivalry game, he obviously showed that ability to make the big play when the game is on the line, right? So not only does he prove that in week one, so he comes out week two, again, trying to hold serve here. And I'll be honest with you, Houston Baptist came out firing on all cylinders last night. They were leading 14-10 with about 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. And, and Luke basically took over the game. He hit multiple big play touchdowns for Louisiana Tech. A facet of Skip's offense that's kind of been lacking in recent years past. A lot of people like to point that out about Jamar Smith and, kind of his, areas of inadequacy in the deep ball and accuracy in that department. Luke was very accurate with the deep ball against Houston Baptist. I think he had 6 passes that traveled in the air over 40 yards, and he connected on all of them, I think, with the exception of one. So this is a guy that I think he's earned that right. I think this is his team. I think the team respects both Luke Anthony and Aaron Allen, and I think they both respond to the both of them when they're in the huddle. But I think Luke has showed that he has that DNA to be the quarterback going forward and to put this team in the best possible position to win football games as they get into the meat of their schedule. I think in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, Marshall's coming into town, and that's going to be a big game. I think he's shown the ability to be able to put Tech in position to win big games like that. And then two, real quick, just something else that really stuck out to me in their win last night was, I thought the coaching staff did a great job of adjusting, right? Again, Houston Baptist comes right out of the gate. The Bailey Zappi kid, he looked apart. Everything that we had looked at through box scores, and I talked with Vic Sheely, their coach, leading up to the game last week. Everything he told me about the Zappi kid, we saw in the first 11 minutes of that game. And then I thought, the defensive coordinator, David Blackwell, did a tremendous job. They went from, trying to rush 3 and and trying to, sit back 8 guys in coverage. And after that third series, they said, you know what, we need to dial up more pressure. We need to pressure him from the edge. We need to make him sit in the pocket. We need to make him try to dissect us, dissect some zone coverage on the back end. So they really sunk into that. And that really hindered what the Huskies wanted to do offensively. And then from an offensive standpoint, again, it all started with Luke. They decided that we need to open up the offense. And so they started connecting on big plays down the field, vert routes, go routes, post routes. And it really opened up the offense for Louisiana Tech, from an offensive standpoint. So those are the two biggest things that stuck out to me. I think Luke has cemented himself as a starting quarterback, and I thought from an in-game adjustment, it was one of the better in-game adjustments that I've seen from Louisiana Tech and its coaching staff in quite a while. And again, I know it was an FCS opponent, and people look at it, well, it's just Houston Baptist. And credit people who do say that, and I get that, but I think a mark of a good coaching staff is how you sort of digest the information that you're getting in the moment and say, okay, what we're not doing is not successful. Let's switch things up. Let's try to get people in better positions to make plays. And I saw that as the game unfolded last night at the Joe. So I don't think this is a victory that anybody should take lightly. I thought it was a good win. I think this Houston Baptist team, they had Texas Tech a couple weeks ago on the road. This is a good win, and this is a win that, obviously this monster that's awaiting Louisiana Tech and Provo, Utah on Friday night. It's going to be a much bigger challenge, let's be honest about it. But I do think that this is a win that, especially for the Luke Anthonys who are still involved in position battles, this is a win, and this is a performance that could really exude a lot of confidence for them moving into a very big game coming up on Friday at BYU.
Yeah, I hope that the Bulldogs don't have a problem with blocking down and kicking out, because they're going to see a lot of that from the Cougars, and they've got some dudes that can do it. But anyway, let's talk some preps. We made it out to some scrimmages last week. Week one's finally here. Who'd have thought we'd get this far, but here it is.
We made it.
We did. I went out to swung by the Lions Den to watch the Big O, the Ouachita Lions, and Franklin Parish. And as far as scrimmages goes, and I'll probably say this about Neville and Wassman, and we'll get there in a minute. But it was sloppy. I expected to see some of that because just not being a normal year. There's a give and take going on. You look at the amount of, time these guys have spent, I won't say practicing, but just, working out. I think everybody's going to be in shape, and especially with another cold snap coming in here. I don't foresee cramping really being a big issue Friday night, but execution, on the other hand, I think will be, just because, we're trying to rush to get the season going and everything. And with one scrimmage, no jamboree, it's going to be a little ugly at first. But
Sure.
And I think saw some of that out at Ouachita. But what you could discern from them is, this is really going to be a passing team this year, I think, with Zach Shaw back at quarterback. He's got two really good targets back in Brandon Kimes and DJ Jacobs. And I think they're going to get a lot of targets, and he's going to throw the football to them. It's kind of hard to really get a good read on how good they're going to be defensively at Ouachita, because Franklin Parish, starting over on offense, they're going from the triple to the spread, and yeah, that's exactly how it sounds. It's going to be something. But Sonny Nason, the new head coach, he did bring Adrian Burnett over as offensive coordinator, the well-traveled Adrian Burnett. So I feel confident in his ability to put an offense together that they will have something representative by the time the season rounds out to the playoffs. But now over at Bill Rupel's big old house of football, where we watched Neville and Wassman. And, for starters, I'm really glad to see them get back together. Those are two teams that played every year for a long time, both schools in the Monroe City School District. And, they quit playing about 4 years ago. And this is kind of the olive branch, I guess you could say, to try to get that series back going. I just think it's good for the city, and it's good for both schools. But that being said, Wassman, there's going to be some growing pains, because you're talking about a new quarterback and also a new center. Snaps were a problem. Getting the snap was a problem. And I think Jesse Booker's in store for a good senior year. He can really, really, really put up some good numbers. But they're going to have to get the snap first to hand him the football, and that was a big problem against them. On the Neville side of things,
how much do you think we're gonna in terms of like those you know, a lot of things that people overlook, right? You know, getting snaps in and you know, fielding snaps, quarterback to running back exchange on handoffs and things. Do you think that's something that we're kind of maybe these first 1 or 2 weeks of the high school football season probably going to be a problem?
Yes, I do. I think fundamentals are going to be a problem just because they haven't practiced, not to a normal, you know, at this point of the season, how you would practice going into the season where you've had almost a month and a jamboree and a scrimmage, maybe 2 scrimmages sometimes. And I think that was definitely an issue with Waspin, how that thing went. Now on the Neville side of things, when they got to the actual scrimmage portion of it, where you know they do the 12-minute quarter, Neville only ran 2 plays, but both of them were for touchdowns. Timothy Bird and A.J. Allen both broke 50-plus yard touchdown runs behind that big offensive line. Will Campbell was knocking some people around, as you would expect from the #1 tackle prospect in this great state of ours. And, you know, I really think this has got the chance to be a dynamic run team for Neville this year. More of what you see in the past, particularly at quarterback, because Brett Badford can run it a little bit. You know, Andrew Brister really improved as the season went on, but he wasn't a mobile guy. And, you know, some injuries he had really kind of set him back there. But Brett can turn the corner on his own read, can run a lot of power stuff they like to do and have done traditionally in the past. And I think you're going to see that from that offense this year when we'll have them in the lines in week 1. I will be out there for that. But before we look into some of those, Corey, did you happen to check out the Washita Christian Eagles and Arcadia the other night?
I did. I went, just drove down the street and checked in on one of our 2 reigning state champions. Went to check out my boy Hunter Herring and how things were looking over there at Stephen Fitzhugh Field, and dude, they haven't missed a beat. Okay, and I get it. Arcadia is not a formidable opponent, especially for a team of the caliber of OCS. But you know, I was out there and within 5 minutes and 2 plays, you know, Hunter's throwing a 70-yard touchdown pass. And here's okay. So here's what's scary, Adam. And again, it's Arcadia. I get it. And you know, Will Fitzhugh's not roaming back there on the defensive backfield on the defensive side of the ball. They, you know, their linebacking core lost a lot due to graduation. So
no Grant Shaw. That's going to be a big loss for them.
I firmly believe that this OCS defense this year is going to be better than the one that they had last year.
Ooh,
again, which is scary. You know, that's really scary to say. You know,
I don't know if that's a hot take, but it's it's sweltering.
Yeah. I think they're more athletic. I think in terms of size, I think they have more size on the defense this year than what they had last year. Which, you know, at 1A ball and, you know, in Division IV, you know, you need some size on the defensive side of the ball, and they've got it this year. And you know, I think this team, they might can run the table, man. They might can. I know there's probably gonna be a couple of games on their schedule where they're gonna need a bounce to go their way to pull that off. You know, they like to play up, especially in non-district play.
Well, let me ask you this, because we talk about them running the table. No Sterlington this year. Season took the COVID took care of that. Now, do they go to Oak Grove this year?
I think they do go to Oak Grove. I think Halloween Eve at Oak Grove, OCS at Oak Grove, our 2 reigning state champs, both on the 1A level. Night before my birthday. Maybe I can treat myself to a little OCS Oak Grove. It's gonna be a game.
I think you should. One of us is going to.
I think, you know, as we're basically getting ready to start high school football, I mean, that's one of our games of the year. I mean, I think those 2 teams, and I know both teams lost some really key playmakers at key positions off last year's state championship teams. But I think both of these teams, I think especially by that time of the year, you've had multiple games to find out what your identity is and to get into your rhythm. I mean, I think it's going to be one of our games of the year. I think it's going to be it's going to be a barn burner, as our man Jim Ross would say, you know, a slobber knocker, you know, and it always is, you know, and it's just one of those more fun games, you know. And like I said, either you or myself, one of us is going to have to treat ourselves to that one, because it's going to be a good one.
Taters, Maters, championships. Never know. But, you know, speaking of said slobber knockers, you know, looking at game slate this week, speaking of Oak Grove, they're going to host Sterlington. And another one of their rivals, which it's always a good game.
The Mayor's Cup, right?
That's right. The Mayor's Cup. My invention, the Mayor's Cup. I keep forgetting. That was something I did a few years ago. Adam Holland and Vern Breland helped us out with that. But you look at last year's game, Sterlington beat Oak Grove at their place. It came down to the wire. Sterlington really had control of the game. Oak Grove got back in the fourth quarter, and the Panthers needed to salt that one away, which they got. And you know, looking back, it ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise for Oak Grove. It was a little humbling for them. Keenan Caldwell and Dalton Allen both got hurt in that game, but Dalton Allen getting hurt ended up being really, really, really bad for the rest of Class 1A, because after he got hurt, that's when we met Mr. Ron Creighton.
Yep.
And God, White Castle's still trying to tackle him. That was just
they haven't tackled him yet.
No, they put him at fullback, and you know, Dalton went to tight end. Dalton, who is going to play college football, he's got offers from a lot of G5 programs. I believe he's committed to Arkansas State right now. It really fits into what they do, kind of that offset tight end, what our coaching buddies call the sniffer. That's what he's going to be on the next level.
I thought he was at this point going to be a Southern Miss Golden Eagle.
Oh, is he commit? Yeah, he is Southern Miss. You're right. You got me on that. I think he had an Arkansas State offer. Not my bad.
But hey, I mean, they've had turnover on the coaching staff there. So I mean, obviously Dalton's going to be one of our area recruits that we'll watch. I mean, I think it's going to be. It might open up for him, you know.
Yeah, but assuming that former ULM offensive coordinator Matt Kubik, who is the offensive coordinator at Southern Miss now, if he gets to stay with this new staff, he also likes a sniffer too in Dalton's staff. But kind of looking at the matchup, you know, this is going to be a lot of turnover at Sterlington. Lost a really good senior class, and despite that, I mean, I guess if you look at when this happened the last time, they had this kind of turnover. It's when they ended up going to Delta. So I think there's some optimism within that staff that they're going to take their lumps early, but they'll have it together for that stretch. And, you know, a couple losses, that has a way of, you know, kind of getting the kids' attention and getting them, you know, focused and picking it up a little bit. It could be the same case here, but Grant Mangrum will take over at quarterback for our boy Hayes Crockett, who's now at ULM doing his thing. And Mangrum's more of a veer quarterback, so you're going to see – instead of kind of the melding of the veer and the spread you saw with Hayes, it's going to be more straight downhill veer coming at you, which Oak Grove will have to find a way to stop. And they'll be well coached, but they're going to have to do it without the two big boys inside, Keenan Caldwell, who is now at Kansas, and Big Bert Hale, who is now at Louisiana Tech. And you know, they'll figure it out, but it's not just going to be as easy as, okay, we can build around these two dudes and nobody can block.
Yeah. You know, I mean, one guy to watch for Oak Grove this year is the guy that's played alongside both Keenan and Bert the last 2 years, and Bryson Baker. You know, he's a guy that, I mean, I remember 2 years ago having conversations with Ryan Gregory and him saying, yeah, look, I get it. We've got Keenan and we've got Bert, and they're two all-state players. But, I mean, 2 years ago, Ryan was hyping up Bryson. So, there's obviously going to be a drop-off in production on the defensive line because, I mean, you lose two guys like that. I mean, it's a 5A school would struggle to replace that. But I would watch out for Bryson Baker. Ryan is has been high on this kid for multiple years now, and now it's his time to shine. So he's really excited about getting Bryson back and kind of being one of the captains on the defense side of the ball. And then another guy, Ryan told me that he thought has had a phenomenal offseason and has gotten bigger and stronger. A guy that started on the offensive line for him last year, but they're going to given more of a look on the defensive side this year is Reed Milligan. A guy that, like I said, Ryan's really high on Reed. And, anytime, an Oak Grove head coach is talking about a good defensive lineman, I mean, he's probably going to be pretty good, so.
Well, especially when that coach was a pretty good defensive lineman himself back in the day for
Right.
the old Tigers.
So, like I said, I mean, it's going to be tough replacing Keenan and Burt, but I think Ryan and his defensive staff feel good about, Bryson and Reed there, kind of taking those spots on the defensive line. And, I anticipate our boy Ron getting more snaps on the defensive side of the ball. I think Ron's gonna take more of a leadership role on both sides of the ball for Oak Grove this year, and I think Ron is gonna fill a very vital role for this Oak Grove team this year, and having a guy like that, we spoke to him I think after the state championship game last year, a really humble kid, a guy that that I think is not going to shy away from this. I mean, he had one of the best playoff runs in the entire state. And I think this guy, I think he's ready. Ryan really lauded the offseason that he had. These kids were having to work out for, on their own, right? They couldn't be at the school team. They had to find out ways to do it. And he said, we were finally able to get back as a team. And I'm looking at Ron, and he's bigger, faster, and stronger. Ron Creighton's he's probably gonna be one of our better high school football players in our coverage area this year. I feel pretty confident in saying that.
I don't disagree. And one more thing about Sterlington before we move on. I think two kids to watch for them. I don't say sleepers, but maybe a little under the radar because they were part of that good team last year. Jordan Doty on the D line, Colin Foy at linebacker. Doty is a transfer from Bastrop. Stepped in last year, really solidified a spot on the defensive front. I think he's in store for a really good senior year. And Colin Foy, also came in. I believe he was at Washita before, and he stepped right in at linebacker, playing next to Cole Jones, who they are going to miss immensely. But Foy was great for them, and they went on a run. Now when they got in the playoffs, some teams found a way to move the ball against them, but they went on a run there through district play where they were playing as good as any defense in the state. So we'll see how those guys fare going forward this season. But I guess now is as good a time to any as to switch on over to the topic that will eat up the rest of the show, the one we've been teasing from the beginning.
Well, let me start saying, had it been possible, we wanted to open today's episode with a tune called "Hurt" by our boy Johnny Cash.
I'm not sure we've reached hurt yet. Maybe we're not quite at hurt levels, which is scary to say. It was something that I texted that to Corey this morning because, full disclosure, it was something that I discovered that ULM football and country music seem to go hand in hand, and it's where we are right now.
Lost my dog, lost my house. I got to find a way to pick up the pieces.
In constant sorrow through his days. But yeah, ULM as a 9-point favorite lost at home to the UTEP Miners. A team that, as we said, had not beaten an FBS opponent in their last 15 tries, which dates back to 2018, or won a road game, which also dates back to 2018. And it was not just that ULM lost, it was how they lost. And it was, the score doesn't even really indicate how dominant how much UTEP was, because it was not one of those when there were some big plays in the game, sure, but this was just a straight up big boy, and is what it was. And it was funny because I watched UTEP come out from warm-ups, and I thought, these guys, I don't know how good they are, but they looked the part. These guys are pretty big. And sure enough, just some of the numbers, we'll go through these just so you kind of get a clear picture of what this was. UTEP outgained ULM 512 to $199. They held the ball for almost 40 minutes in time of possession in the game. Their quarterback, Mr. Gavin Hardison, He threw for 302 yards, which is easily his career high. Their tailback, who also had another career high, Deion Hankins, he ran for 114 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those 3 touchdowns were in the first half. As a team, UTEP ran for 210 yards. ULM ran for 7. And
wait, they rushed for 7 whole yards?
They ran for 7. They ran for 7 yards, the same amount of times they punted.
Oh boy.
The Warhawks also produced 4 first downs and ran 45 plays.
Wait, whoa, okay, whoa. So where did our boy Josh Johnson go?
You know, and we'll get to that in the questions I solicited. Because I thought to properly have this discussion and seeing some of the frustrations from the Warhawk faithful, I asked for some questions on Facebook today, and we will address those because I feel it's not only a pretty good window into the mindset of said fan base, but it also will help us break down this loss a little bit and where the program goes from there. So we will start in earnest with Jack Rosick, former ULM offensive lineman. He played for Ed Zombricker and Bobby Kiesler. Ask him about Javon Kerr sometime if you know Jack. It's a very funny story. He said the fat lady is singing. It might be. It might be. I don't know that we're all the way there yet because a lot can change in this wonderful, dumb world of college football. But if you're a ULM fan and you're listening to this, we may have said this last week because it does sound familiar, but you really need to wrap your head about 0-12 because it could happen. Oh yeah, I don't see ULM being favored in another game for the rest of the year after losing to UTEP, and especially losing like that. So that is something you need to start coming to terms with. However you come to terms with things, there's no personal judgment here. Whatever you need to do you. But Samuel Whittington.
Okay, let me interject here and ask you this.
Okay.
Because when we opened the ULM segment up here, you mentioned what the line was coming into yesterday.
9.5.
Why? Okay. Why? Why was ULM a 9.5-point favorite going into this game? I mean, did that make any sense to you?
It did to me at first because you look at their every indication, UTEP is that bad. And you've watched this team play more than I have the past couple of years. So I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Am I wrong here?
No, I mean let's be honest. I mean UTEP's been bad for quite a while now. But I do think from what I do know, at least now at this point, I hadn't really looked into UTEP, but I do know that some of the problems that they had personnel-wise, I know those guys are gone via one way or the other. So I kind of felt like as you were looking into the UTEP ULM matchup last week, and I was giving it more thought, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, just from pure attrition, this UTEP team might be better than what I've seen in the 4 years that I've been, covering a Conference USA team, a team that plays them every year. Just strictly from the fact that some of the troublemakers are no longer on the team, and this as well as I do. When you can kind of get that out of your nucleus, it has a way of being a big positive for you.
Yeah, and obviously that's kind of what happened. I mean, this was a way better football team than I gave it credit for, than I thought it was going to be, and that showed up in a big way. Samuel Whittington asks, "What is up with the offensive line?" Good question. That is kind of one of the moment what everybody's wanting to know the most. And I mean, it's a 3-game sample, but they've not been good at all.
Is my boy Victor Cutler getting any time?
He's playing some, and there's just not a whole lot to build on right now. And this will probably get to people complaining about play calling, because that's going to happen. It's hard to call plays when you can't block anymore. Like, there's not a play for that. There's not a tag for that. There is not an audible. There is not a check with me for that if you cannot hold your own on the line of scrimmage. And you mentioned Josh Johnson. That is the problem right now. There is no push up front. And UTEP, I will say, UTEP's defensive line was very good. That was the one area of their team I thought was going to be good over there. They actually had actually, I don't think they were playing. They weren't flip flopping their guys, but one of their interior guys, Kelton Moss, from Jonesboro Hodge. So he had a good day back in his home region, and that's been the biggest thing, and it continues to be the biggest thing. And we say it every week, but it's going to be until you get fixed, because line play is at the most basic level of football, and if you're bad at that, there is no masking it. That is just football 101, the basics, and that's why Josh Johnson hasn't been able to get going. And they're trying. Matt Viator made a big push this week. We have to stick with the run because he felt like he abandoned it against Texas State. Which, if you watch that game, you should not blame him for abandoning the run because they couldn't do it. And at some point, you get down behind and you're going to try to win this game. You can't just be, running up in there for, negative plays or a yard or two at best. But he did try to stick with it and be persistent. And there's just not a lot good going on right now up there. And I will say with the offensive line, what I would say about the entire team, and people may say this is coach speak or coach cliche, but I mean, it's really true. I mean, there's no magic solution to any of this. The only thing you can do is go to practice and try to get better. And that's all you can do is work at it. Tommy Tharp asks, he says, quotes, "The talent is there. We just need coaching," said every ULM know-it-all every 4 years. There's some truth to that. I'm actually getting a lot of that today because that's the first thing we want to do is blame coaching. But again, I will ask all you who still at this point, and if you still think coaching is the problem at this point with this program over the sample size of 26 years, God bless you. I mean, that's some loyalty. I don't know. But I'm going to implore you. I want you to think really, really hard about this, all right? We'll take Bobby Kiesler out of it because we all know how that went. Although I will point out again, Bobby Kiesler won every place he ever coached but one. So that's noted for the record. Every ULM coach since 1994, the year that they jumped to FBS, throwing Kiesler out, that's Ed Zombrecker, that is Charlie Weatherby, that is Todd Berry, that is Matt Viator. They have all averaged 4 wins in their tenure. Over I guess you take 3 years out of that 23.5 out of that 26-year sample because you're talking about Kiesler. What does that tell you? What should that tell you? That maybe, just maybe, these coaches you hire aren't all idiots because you're getting the same results. All right? So it's time to look at some other more pressing things. Let's see, a couple of Louisiana Tech questions popped in for that game because, oh Lord. One from Adam Treywick. What's up, Adam? I saw your parents at the tailgate before this UTEP game.
My boy Adam.
And he is all in for November 21st. And we also got a similar one from Keith Foster. At this point, they better hope the Tech matchup gets canceled because the Dogs are going to kill them. They might, if that's really an avenue Skip Holtz wants to go down. And we'll see how things are when we get there. A lot of season to go. A lot of things can happen. But I will say,
Sure.
I was talking to an old school ULM guy about this last week, and like old school to the point, he still calls them Northeast. So we're talking about the oldest of old school. He said, "Adam, what do you think about Northeast and Tech playing?" And like the analogy that hit to mind, and it's kind of been from the beginnings. It's as much as we want to see it, it's going to be fun. But from the ULM perspective, it's kind of like that old dog that's always running after that car. No pun intended, since we're talking about Louisiana Tech and dogs. Heyo. But yeah, that old dog that's running after that car, chasing it constantly. Well, what happens when the dog finally catches the car? We'll see on November 21st.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim Russell. What is everyone's opinion on what needs to change for ULM to win? Not just next week, but in general. At one point, Louisiana Lafayette and ULM were on the same level. It feels like they have far surpassed us now. Well, that's because they have, Tim. And the reason they have is because they tapped into a resource, a financial resource, namely oil and gas money, and some generosity, and really just kind of a different spirit down there of being about Acadiana and all in for Acadiana that you don't get in North Louisiana. And that's where that money's come from. That's why they've built $20+ million facility upgrades. They have an indoor practice facility. That's why they could pay Billy Napier and his staff and as much. Really, I think they're top 5 in terms of G5, and they're getting the results to prove it. So, yeah, that's definitely true. And what has to change?
I was gonna say to whomever it was that asked that question, I was like, I mean, you can answer the question yourself just by driving down to Lafayette and walking around campus. I mean, it's clear as day why the Cajuns are currently a top 20 football team in both polls, right? I mean, their facilities on the Group of 5 level are top tier. I mean, their baseball facility is immaculate. I mean, and I've covered a softball game down there. I mean, even their softball facilities are almost unrivaled on the Group of 5 level. That's why their softball team is considered to be a team that can get to the college softball World Series every year. I mean, the answer to that question can be answered just strictly by stepping on foot on campus down there.
Yeah. The only negative I can come up with is they got rid of the beer fridge in the media workroom there at the football facility. I don't know why that was done, but that needs to be rectified. I was very disappointed last year.
So when I went down for the opener 2 years ago.
Oh, that's right, because I told you all about that and got you all excited when you went down there.
I got so excited going into that Grambling State Lafayette game, Adam. I was so pumped. I was like, man, I'm going to hit send. I'm going to file this story, and then I'm going to raid that beer fridge. And it was gone, and I was heartbroken.
But to the other part of his crest, what needs to change for ULM to win? Well, about $15 to $20 million worth of stuff.
That would be a start.
Let's break this down simply, because I know a lot of you all think that coaching is the most important thing when it comes to all this. It's not. Okay. The most important thing is acquisition of talent. You need some kids that can play. And I'm not saying that ULM doesn't have talent. It does have some talent. I mean, Josh Peterson, Josh Johnson, Corey Strotter, Colby Suits looks like he's stepping into his zone. TJ Fiola's not had the best year, but I think he can round into form. Travion Webster's playing out of his mind right now, linebacker, one of the bright spots on the defense. Kilo Sweeney has been good. I think Josh Newton, even though he's taking his lumps a little bit, is going to be a very good corner before he's done playing. But the problem is they don't have enough talent. Like, it's just like clusters, pockets of it. That's the way it's kind of always been up there. So then I guess you would say, well, how do you get talent? It's simple. You got to build stuff that you got to have stuff kids want, stuff 18-year-old kids want. You have to have nice facilities. You have to have things for them to do, somewhere where they can go play PlayStation or do whatever it is they all want to do. I'm 35 years old. I may not know what y'all like to do anymore, but it's a lot of those things. And the other problem you have is, yes, you are in a region with a lot of talent. Theoretically, you could just drive up and down I-20, fill your roster. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But you also have 4 schools out in every geographic direction from you that all want to do the same thing or can do the same thing, and they have nicer things to work with. We've already talked about the Cajuns down south. Up north, you got Arkansas State. It's very similar in that they were once on ULM's, well, not anymore, because you go look at what they have. They may have nicer stuff than the Cajuns do. You go out west. There's Louisiana Tech. They also spent $20-some million on their football facilities and what they have. Then you go out east. Southern Miss may be in a bad way now, but they still have nicer stuff than you. And that's why they're recruiting on a better level. Those schools also offer cost of attendance, but ULM does not. And that's another thing kids like, some money on their pocket. So, yeah, you're talking about that stuff that puts you at a disadvantage. And let's say, for the sake of argument, you think the coach is the problem. All right, if you want an upgrade coach, you want to find a better coach than Matt Viator. Let's say that in theory. You're going to have to pay more for one. All right, because we've got a market rate for how much Matt Viator is worth. If you want better, you got to pony up and get you one. And you're in the bottom 3 in salaries. So that's not going to get it either. And your overall athletic budget, things you want to do, say you want some new unis, some other things, shiny stuff kids like, your athletic budget's the worst in FBS. The worst. Bottom. Okay. So, yeah, those are all stuff that has to change. And that all comes with money and finding it. And Ron Berry, the new president, Scott McDonald, that's what y'all need to do. And that's what's going to happen for this thing to ever have a fighting chance. Robert Charles Payne.
It's not an overnight fix, right? I mean, this isn't something that, say come the 2021 season, oh yeah, we've got things in place and we really can compete now. No, I mean this is something that's going to take time.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this too before we move on to the next question. Instead of just always assuming the coach is the problem, maybe just maybe stop and think, you know what? What could we do with our coach if we actually gave him the tools to do something instead of sending him to a gunfight with a butter knife? Just a thought. Robert Charles Payne asks, my concerns right now is there appears to be a lack of discipline and low morale. When you have players waving at girls in the stands and playing grab, hey-oh on the sidelines while getting destroyed on the field, you have a problem that has nothing to do with talent. That is one of the few areas a coach at ULM has control. We look better in week 1 than week 3. A team with 3 potential next level players, this is scary. Okay, I know what you're talking about. This is something that's come up from some of the ULM fans about what did or did not take place on the sideline during the game, and attributing that to the lack of focus or this, that, or the other, even though you really don't know that because you weren't on the sideline to see what was going on. But at the very least, I agree with you. It's a bad look. Like, especially in a game like that, it is a bad look. But I would also say if you think that was the biggest problem this team faces or that happened on the field Saturday, woo, buddy. So let me just tell you. But it is but I'm not saying it's not a concern. I'm really not. I mean, because that's at least just from a perception standpoint. Now, I'm not the body language police just because I think things are a little bit more nuanced than that. But some people are. But just from a perspective of your program, as a coach, you can't have it. You just can't. And I would imagine it will be addressed. I don't know how it would not be, whether it changes or not, we'll see. But I mean, stuff like this, will be addressed, because one thing I can say about this coaching staff, even when things have gotten bad, and there's been some gut punches through this 5-year or it's 4 coming on 5-year tenure. They've always found a way to block out the noise and keep these guys practicing hard. I noticed it a lot last year too, and it's just something that I've always been impressed with from this staff, because people don't understand how fragile a locker room is. Even teams that win, you can have bad locker room. So that's going to be the key is keeping that together, because you do not want it to you don't want it to get bad. And when it gets bad like that, people start checking out. That's when you really have problems. But another question, Greg Andrews, community involvement. How do we improve that? Oof. A very simple question with a complex answer, because this isn't something that's just a ULM problem. I mean, this is the Louisiana problem. It's a Monroe problem. It's a Ruston problem. It's a Natchitoches. It's a Lake Charles, although I'm not holding that against them this year, everything they've gone through. Love you all down there. Hope everything improves. It's a Hammond problem. It's everybody. And the bottom line is, in this state, if you're not LSU, you do not matter to these people, other than your loyal brand of diehards, in which ULM does not have much of anymore and has not found a way to recapture and said cultivate. But how to get them more involved, I mean, they're a fickle lot. All of them are. I mean, and even winning, that was always the thing. Well, if we can win some games, and it'll take care of itself. I'm not sure they will. And the reason I say that is not to just be negative, but it's just because we've seen evidence of it. Louisiana Lafayette had the best season they have ever had. I think both FBS and FCS, like in their existence last year. And they still weren't drawing flies. Like if you want to just put their attendance and compare it to a level in which that successful of a program should warrant, it wasn't even close. And it was just like I never will forget. I was watching when the first time they played at. There was ULM was playing Texas State on that Thursday. They played on a Wednesday. I was in town for the game. My parents live in Austin, not a far drive from San Marcos. So I was chilling at my parents' house watching the game, looking at those crowd shots at Cajun Field, just like, wow, I couldn't believe it. Hey, Corey, you can speak on this. Louisiana Tech finally got over the hump, won 10 games. Their attendance may be better than both ULM and the Cajuns, but it ain't good either.
Yeah, no, it's not great. I mean, I always think back to 3 years ago. Mississippi State's coming to town. Nick Fitzgerald's the quarterback. There was NFL talent all over the field for
an SEC school coming to your place.
An SEC school coming to Ruston, coming to play at your stadium that only seats 28 and change, and they still couldn't sell the game out. They still here to me from an outsider, and I know you're an outsider too, Adam, but for someone who grew up in a different state and's come over here, and I've only been here 4 years, the main crux of the issue that I have come to understand from my time being here so far is that, you know, I get it. LSU's the flagship, right? I get it. But there's got to be Saturdays during the fall where those folks who maybe rank their teams as LSU and then a ULM, Tech, Lafayette, McNeese, Northwestern State, what have you. There's got to be Saturdays where they shelf LSU for 3.5 hours and they go to the game. Go to the game that's around the corner from your house. Go to the game that's 20 minutes from your house. Go, because these kids these days, and I have these conversations with Louisiana Tech and Grambling State players too, for that matter. Grambling doesn't really have this issue because people love their Grambling State football and they're going to come. You can play the game in Japan. They're going. But kids these days want to see butts in the seats. They want to look up in the stands at a Malone Stadium or a Joe I.A. Stadium and see it nearly full. That in and of itself, you know, these folks want to talk about, well, if we win, it takes care of itself. Well, these people need to understand, right, that they're part of that first process of winning. Because the more people that show up to the games and show these football players support during these games, get loud on a key third down, get loud on a fourth down that these teams are trying to go for, that energizes them. That enthusiasm brings out more focus, brings out them executing better. That's what they thrive on. And so if you don't go to the game, you want to talk about, oh, well, if we win, it'll take care of itself. Well, at some point, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am part of the winning, right?
No, I agree. And you hit on, you know, one of maybe even the crux of the issue actually is the other stuff has to happen before the winning. That's just the way it goes. And that's not just all on fans, because you will never hear me criticize a ULM fan that still comes to these games, because, I mean,
yeah, hey.
but the investment has to be made, and you need to make that investment. Give your staff and these players what they need to succeed, and everybody gets on board and goes from there. That's how this starts. Rarely, I'll say not never, but rarely do you get the winning before the other. That actually happened at ULM back in 2012. We went 8-5 and played the Independence Bowl, and nothing changed. And that's why lightning in the bottle was not captured. It was not even put in the bottle. It just disappeared. So yes, you're exactly right. And to the players, and that's always, you know, when you talk to these guys, and it's something that, you know, there's nothing more depressing than attending a ULM senior day, because I've been around there long enough to actually have like a full class come through now. And you see when they first get there and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and, you know, they go through, you know, they mature, they go through some stuff, they get on the field, they deal with the ups and downs and everything, and they put one foot in front of the other despite everything that goes on, and do the best they can. And then what are they rewarded on a senior day with like less than 5,000 people? And they just deserve more than that. And I hate it for them. I really do, especially some of the local kids I've known since they were 14 and 15 years old. Like, it's, you know, and that becomes their lasting memory of the place. And it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't. Yeah. And I'm hearing people, why don't you be part of the solution? Well, I cover the team. Okay. I point out these things because this is what the public needs to know. And for the record, yes, I would love for ULM to be successful. You know how much easier my job would be if ULM would be successful? I yearn to cover a winner. It would be outstanding. But one last question in from Quint. What does the new president need to do? Okay, that would be Dr. Ron Berry, who I guess he's almost been the president a month now. I mean, it's getting close to it.
Is he officially in that seat?
Yeah, he's officially in that seat. We'll call him friend of the program, Edwin Litzoff, has departed back for Baton Rouge in the UL system office. But Ron's been on campus a while. I mean, 25 some years now. He's a ULM graduate. He's from Winsboro. Yeah, I believe he has at least one. He may have 2 degrees from the university. He's been an instructor. He's been an instructor for about the past 25 years. He rose to be the dean of the College of Business and Social Science. Very popular on campus, as you saw by the outpouring support locally for him. And his wife, Christine, is also an instructor on the campus. And, it was kind of a win for everybody, the university community when they saw one of their own get that job. And I've talked to Ron about athletics going into the whole final stages of the search, and he understands that like it cannot continue this way. Like something has to give, and it's going to be his job to help find that solution. I think he understands what that is. It's just whether you can do it or not, because so much of it is financial related, and where does that come from? I mean, Northeast Louisiana, just in a region. I mean, it's kind of tapped out economically at the moment. So you got to think of alternate ways, revenue streams, and things you can do. I've often thought that a smart thing would be to engage some of your alums, particularly these construction management people who actually have the means to give. All those are in Houston, Dallas, and get them involved, because unfortunately around here, I mean, you don't get a lot of alums that are, in prominent, I guess prominent industries where they make a lot of money. It's a lot of bankers, a lot of insurance agents, and that's only going to get you so far. Even if you had an army of them, which ULM used to have back in the day. But that's where that's kind of the first step, the first piece of it. And Ron's going to decide what's that going to be. Is it engaging those? Is it trying to get that? Is it trying to get that student fee, ever-present student fee passed? Is there a way to do that? I still think that's a possibility. They could do that if they would just actually sell it, which Nick Bruno and his administration never did, which is why it always failed.
Right.
So you can see that, but we'll see. I think he's when you're staring this kind of season in the face when you just take over as a president, that's definitely a challenge for sure, because athletics are the face. They're the front porch. That's what people are going to see. That's something you got to get fixed. But on to this week, the last of a 3-game homestand for the Warhawks. We have Georgia Southern, who are coming into Malone Stadium. This same Georgia Southern team who had
won.
had the Cajuns beat. It seemed, but they found a way to win, as they were wont to do, and a field goal this time. In the area they'd struggled, but this is a Georgia Southern team that handled the Warhawks last year. The last time Georgia Southern came up here, ULM actually handled them. That was kind of the game where it was that 6-6 year where they were bowl eligible in 2018. It was a weird ebb and flow for that season. You start 2-4, then end up 6-4 going to your last 2 games, and that was the big one, because you looked at what they'd done. They had beaten Coastal Carolina, which is a team, you look in and thinking, okay, that's who they should have beaten. And then Georgia Southern, even coming to Malone Stadium, everybody's kind of, what's going to happen here? And ULM came in there and got after that behind. They really did. And it was maybe one of their best performances. It may have been the best performance for the year. And it really put them in position to get bowl eligible, because they wouldn't have without that one. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, this team is very, very different from that one from 2 years ago that we were just referencing. And where do they go?
When you look at this, when you look at ULM's remaining schedule, if there's one game left on, at least one game left on it that you could see them getting a win, what would be that game to you?
Well, that's a very good question, because the only one I really felt good about was UTEP, and we saw how that went. But we'll go down the schedule right now and take a look at that. Okay, we've got Georgia Southern this week. That's going to be tough to win. At Liberty, looking at another loss. They seem to be pretty formative this year. At South Alabama, they've kind of come back to earth this year. That's talking about a road win. But last time ULM went to South Alabama, they won. South Alabama in their brand new stadium. This will not be at the Ladd Peoples Erector Set. So I think
for them getting a new stadium. Ladd Peoples.
This is the worst. The worst.
God,
after South Alabama, Appalachian State comes to Malone on Halloween. Going to be tough to win. Maybe
talk about a trick or treat.
Yeah, maybe the spirits and dark forces will get involved there. I don't know. At Georgia State, that's a team that's kind of had ULM's number. They did beat them last year. Their last outing in Atlanta was not good. So possibly at Arkansas State. They haven't beaten Arkansas State since 2009. Louisiana Tech and Shreveport.
This year's the year.
Louisiana Tech and Shreveport.
I'm just telling you, if ULM's the only thing I'll say about that November 21st game at Indy, if ULM cannot shore up their offensive line struggles before November 21st, Big Milt, my boy Milton Williams on Tech's defensive line is going to have a field day.
And after that Saturday at Independence Bowl Stadium, battle on the Bayou. The Ray John Cajuns.
Cajuns are coming up to Malone Stadium this year.
Approaching from the north, as they like to say at Rebel Stadium. That game gets weird. Okay, now you look at it and you think that's as lopsided as it's been in a while, but you go through look at that series history, and crazy stuff happens. Like crazy stuff happens, and typically, the team that has the most to play for in that game usually gets gut punched. That's just how it works. So we'll see. And then the final game of the season will be December 5th. Their reschedule at Troy, who got them some of BYU last night. And
I was going to say, took an absolute beating last night.
So
for starters, they took their first L today by deciding to wear those helmets that they wore last night.
Not a fan?
Not a fan. Those things were hideous. I don't know what it is about the gradient, man. I'm not a gradient guy. Like let's be one color. Like let's don't try to be, we talked about the Atlanta Falcons.
and they just falconed all over themselves before I turned this on, which is going to be fun to watch too, because Saints fans are loving it. But when you see this on Monday, we'll know the result. But you play tonight.
Yeah.
and as
Aaron Rodgers comes to the Dome.
As I often remind you, it does not matter what you do. The Saints and the Falcons, you're two crabs in a bucket, and you will be that for your entire existence. Well, Corey, do we need to hit anything else up before we get out of here?
No, man. I think we hopefully helped at least one person exercise some Warhawk demons.
A nice bomb or a salt, whatever you want to call it. But let's I guess we should let everybody know where we're going Friday night, since we've got the high school footballs. What is on your agenda?
Yeah, man, we're going to, we're kicking this thing off. Week 1, high school football, it's here. We made it. I will be spending my Friday night with the West Monroe Rebels. They welcome Karen Crow from down south up here in West Monroe. Should be a good one. I think, there's been a lot of turnover and attrition with West Monroe from last year to this year. But I think West Monroe should get this game on Friday night and open their year 1-0. And then leading up till Friday, we'll have a, kind of a West Monroe season preview to be looked out for on the newsstar.com. We'll be covering Louisiana Tech as they get ready to leave town on Thursday, head over to Provo, Utah for the Friday night matchup against the Cougs. Hopefully they'll be able to get, still got a couple of guys out, with injuries and whatnot. Maybe they can get those guys back before this road trip, and maybe that can, help the pendulum swing a little closer to them in their efforts to try to knock off a ranked team. So that's what we've got going on, man. I'm assuming you'll be with the you're going to the Lions Den, right?
No Bears, but you've got Bears. The Karen Bears. I've just got the Lions and Tigers. Another meeting in this friendly city rivalry between the Neville Tigers and Washita Lions. I will be out there at that one. It's going to be it's going to be fun to be back for some football. We'll see how it goes. Washita has not beaten Neville since 2010, so there's some history there with that one as well. And like I said, I think at the top of the show, I think Washita's going to be more of a passing team this year because that plays to their strength. But it also kind of plays to Neville's strength too with their secondary, with some guys they've got back. Kareem Moore steps into that star position for him, that strong side hybrid linebacker safety that they like to play, and then you've got Myron Elam, a free safety, had a very good season last year, came on late, and then another safety, Griffin McGee, who appears to be the next in a long line of hard-hitting white boy safeties from Neville, because they grow on trees out there. We go from Hagan Lawrence to Scott Ryder to T.J. Lemoyne to Cole Marsh, Andrew Cagle, last year's 4A Defensive Player of the Year. Now we got Griffin McGee. So we'll see how it goes there. It should make for a good fun night of football. As far as my workload for the week, in addition to all the ULM content, I will have a story with Jeff Tannehill, Neville's new head coach, who landed his dream job and now finally gets to worry about football instead of all the others. And then I'm also going to sit down with Zach Shaw over at Washita, going in his senior year quarterback, 3-year starter, and kind of what he has in store for his senior year. So be on the lookout for those, and we will be back here same time next week.
Yeah, with finally getting the full slate of everything that we usually have in the fall, I'm looking forward to next week's episode, man, because I know we're gonna have a lot to talk about. There's gonna be a lot to digest, and I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff that happens Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night that I think a lot of people will be interested to see what we have to say about it.
I hope so. That means click on the show, watch it, YouTube channel, New Star Sports, email us, newstarsports@gmail.com, and we'll be back next week.
Appreciate you guys. Take care. Have a good week.